Hello and welcome to the This Awesome Life podcast, a collection of stories that point to purpose. I'm Brandon and I have an awesome life, but that's not really unique because so do you. In every episode of This Awesome Life, we talk to a friend, we listen to their story, and we hear about the moments in which God pointed them forward in their calling. So let's dive in, explore some stories, and celebrate this awesome life. Look, today on the show, I've got my good friend Sam. Sam is the director of Feed, and Feed works to equip the local church with resources to engage Gen Z in open and honest conversations around biblical truths. I'm going to let Sam tell you a little bit more about that and introduce himself here in a moment. So let's jump in. Well, hey, and thank you so much for listening to the This Awesome Life podcast. Before we get started with today's conversation, I wanted to take a quick second to tell you about my brand new book, Magic in the Mug. Now, this book is all about how a single cup of coffee can help us discern our purpose and learn a little bit more about who God has called each of us to be. I can't wait to share this book with the world. It is launching later this fall. I'd love for you to be one of the first to know all the details about Magic in the Mug. Head over to magicinthemug.com. That's where you're going to find all the information you need, and I really hope to see you there. Hey everyone, and welcome to the This Awesome Life podcast. Like I said, I am here with my friend Sam McCullough. Sam and I connected a little while back through an organization called Feed, which is just a really awesome organization that looks to kind of empower and provide resources to the Big C Church, and I just love that. So I'm going to let Sam tell us a little bit about Feed and a little bit about what you do there. Sam, we'd love to hear from you.
Brandon, what's up, man? Such an honor to be here. Just love hanging with any youth pastor or anybody in this space. So yeah, my name's Sam McCullough. I am the director of Feed, which sounds crazy to say out loud, but I've been working with Feed Youth Ministry for a couple of years, and Feed really exists to equip youth ministries with scripture engagement resources. We're all about seeing young people fall in love with the God of the Bible. We've seen biblical literacy at an all-time low. You know that being in ministry, and so at Feed we exist to help close that gap. We want to see young people really move from nominal to committed Christians, and so we've created and built out with an incredible team. I can take zero credit for that, but resources to equip the local church, and they're totally free. And so I love what I do with Feed. I also serve at City Church in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, as one of the team pastors there. And so I am a local church guy to the max, and honored to get to do it on a national scale with Feed as well.
That's so awesome, man. I love that. Feed has helped me in ministry immensely through things like insights and just all the stuff that helps me get to know my students better and connect with them better, and then provide for them like the resources that they need. Like you said, biblical literacy being at an all-time low is just, it's hard to watch. And so I just really appreciate what you and the Feed team have done to help impact and empower us on the front lines, if you will. And you know what that's like because you're there as well. So that's awesome. So man, thank you so much for what you do. Yeah. Hey, yeah, it's good stuff, man. I'm so thankful that you're here, man, because I know that you've got just an awesome story about how God sort of orchestrated all of these things in your life that you've said that you're, part of, being part of Feed, part of the local church there as a youth pastor. Man, I would love to hear just part of your story and how God directed you towards your purpose.
Yeah, man, that's exciting. I've been thinking about this one a lot. And man, for me, I'll just tell you really quick, I grew up in a relatively broken home, actually like a totally broken home. My home life was pretty wild growing up, and I know so many of us unfortunately can relate to that.
Yeah.
But man, when I was in high school, I had what you would call maybe your typical like crazy God encounter on a mission trip. I went on a mission trip to Mexico and saw God do miraculous things that I couldn't deny. I saw God do some crazy things. It was in 2003, Monterrey, Mexico. March, and so just a super huge core memory in my life where I really encountered God in such a tangible way. You know what I'm saying? Where you're just that changed everything. I can mark that.
Yeah.
Remember, I was in a place called the Macro Plaza, Monterrey, Mexico, where my life changed forever, right? And so that's like every youth pastor's dream to hear those stories.
Yeah.
So man, from then on, I was as quick as I could, jumped in any sort of ministry opportunity I could in high school, leadership opportunities on mission trips, you name it. Like if it was a mission trip, I was there, whole mindset was like, God already said go, so I'm not going to pray about it. Like, let's go. If God says no, all right, we'll back off.
That's so good.
So went on tons of mission trips in high school, started leading on mission trips and everything like that at a younger age. And then as soon as I could become a youth leader, when I graduated high school, I was like, give me that badge. I want to be a leader on a mission trip so bad. And so, that was my desire. And so we would do that. Sorry, to all of our listeners with parents, this is #BeReal.
Absolutely. I love it.
So
spring break,
baby. Not to debate this podcast or anything. So, man, I go on this mission trip, changes my life. Start being a leader on mission, in our youth ministry at a great church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Really cut my teeth in ministry, and like I was just hungry, man. As a young man, I was just like growing up in a crazy home, bro. Like, wasn't rare for police to be at my home. Wasn't rare for that kind of stuff. For me, I was just so drawn to what God was doing in and through the local church. And so, dude, there was like no plan B for my life. Like, I felt 100% called to the ministry when I was in 9th grade. And then the trajectory from then on was like, God, if there's ever an opportunity to preach, to do whatever, the answer is yes. Like, whatever it is, I'm in. Like, I was as sold out as you could be at a young age, man. So that was all cool, right? Like, that was awesome. I felt like I was kind of like the poster child for mission trips. I was always on the brochures at my church, went to a huge church in Tulsa.
The brochure guy. Well done.
I was the brochure guy, man. I was that kid. And, I always played the devil in dramas on mission trips and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Love it.
Give my testimony and stuff. And, but man, once I was in Bible school, I really, as people were starting to get like actual jobs, there was this like disconnect. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, to be honest. Like, I loved students, I loved teenagers, I loved missions, but nothing job-wise was clicking. And I think where a lot of people end up, you're in that volunteer space, you're an intern. I was like a super intern, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't cool after a while. After a while, your friends were like, so what are you doing, bro? And man, I feel called to be here, and I'm just serving and making sandwiches to pay rent. And so that struggle, man, I was like, I feel so like called to do this. I'm not going to shove my way into this thing, but like, Lord, I'm not seeing any open doors here,
Yeah.
And dude, like, Brandon, if I'm honest, like, it was, and I went through your typical like young adult breakups, which don't exactly help with anything, so you're going through these like weird, like, I always say young adult life is like middle school all over again. You're just trying to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
Except for you have actual responsibilities. And so there's just this like,
yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And man, no job opportunities were really opening up. And I was discouraged. Like, I was at a real low, where I was questioning, like, okay, did I miss it? Like, I guess I need to just go get a real job. And man, it sucked. Like, it was so discouraging. I was like, dude, I feel like a failure. I feel like everybody's telling me like, oh, you're called and you're this, because when you're that poster kid, if it was now, I would always be on all the Instagram pictures at my youth group or whatever. But nobody's hiring me. So I'm like, all right, well, what's the gap here? Like, what am I missing? And that's a whole other conversation in and of itself, of finding your identity in a job. But that's where I was, like, I just was like, well,
for sure.
This is it. And so, dude, I went through phases of bitterness, of resentment to my own pastor. And actually, I was leading a homeless outreach at the time, and at our church for our young adults ministry. And it was awesome. Like, it was a great outreach. We reached 100 people a weekend, feeding people free food and doing evangelistic events and things like that. And I was leading that, and I hated it. I was like, dude, this is a failure. Like, this is all I'm going to do, And I was walking up to my young adults pastor to quit and to be like, yo, I'm out.
Oh, wow.
I'm moving to New York City with my sister. I'm leaving this place. I'm done with you. Like bitter as you could get. I'm walking to him to tell him I quit. And a dude who had been on our team stops me and interrupts me. Like, and it really annoyed me because I was on mission.
Yeah,
like I finally worked with the courage to like stick it to the man or whatever. And he stops me and he's like, bro. And I was like, what do you want? He's like, I just have to tell you. He's like, if you hadn't led this outreach, I don't know where my life would be today. Like, honestly, he's like, this has changed everything. Like my walk.
Oh, what a jerk.
Yeah, right. And I melt, with conviction where I was like, ugh, because for so long, it was like, I'm just doing this out of passion. And then I had my eyes so set on the prize for, I got to get a job. If you're not really in ministry unless you work at a church. You're not really in ministry. And I kind of sold my soul to that thing, And in that moment, it was like a gut punch where I just like hugged him and I was like, dude, thank you. And I literally proceeded my walk to my pastor and I walked up to him and I said, dude, I have to like repent. He was like, okay. I was like, I have been so mad for months, like just bitter. And he had no idea. Those are the best when you're a pastor and somebody's like, I've hated you for 6 months. And you're like, I didn't know. I know.
Yeah.
I was that kid, I was like 18, 19 years old. And but we led to this conversation of him going, hey, dude, like, what do you really want to do? And I was like, I don't know. He asked me this question. He said, have you ever thought about being a youth pastor? He's like, because you're really good with youth. And I was like, I don't know, maybe. I don't know. And it seeded this thought of like, what if I was a youth pastor? Like I wanted to be a missions guy, but really what I loved about missions was seeing students encounter God and be used in a way they never would have dreamed they could be used. Like that's what I loved about missions, And I was like, oh my gosh, what if? So I'll fast forward really fast now, turbo mode here. Just like a week later, not even a week later, I get a call. Mind you, I have been like dreaming about opportunities and nothing's opened up. I have this call where I have this moment where I get my heart right and then just let this thing go. I get a call like a week later. Hey, we heard you are potentially looking for an opportunity. We have this opportunity in this town to like do exactly what you want to do. Youth ministry, coffee ministry, all this cool stuff. And I'm like, no way. What? I go out there, check out this job. I don't like it. I was like, this does not seem good. But it was the only opportunity. And I was like, I'm going to take it. I felt this weird pressure. But I was just like, no, just give it a week. Like, and sometimes, like God will bring things your way or things will be brought your way. And it might be good, but it might not be God, And man, what was best for me because it was the only opportunity to get paid to do ministry. And I was like, I got to take it. But I was like, let's just wait. Yeah. Well, that same week, somebody came up to me and said, hey, I heard this church in Bartlesville, which I knew these people really well, was looking for a youth pastor. Are you interested? And dude, I'm going to go like Pentecostal on you. In my spirit, it was like, that's it. Yes.
That's the one.
Dude, couldn't even, like, I was like, that's it. And I said, yes, I'm very interested. And they said, good, because I already told them to set up an interview with you. I was like, no way. So I am at the place where I'm losing the current job I have. This is all within like a month. My job that I was working like at a coffee shop at my church, was going away. Okay. I'm about to start working construction. I'm like, dude, this is okay. Maybe opportunities are coming up, but I have nothing guaranteed. I also have to call and let this person know I'm not going to take the job that was offered to me, the one job.
Yeah.
I've heard nothing about the one that I was like knew inside was it. Yeah. I am getting ready to go call that person to let them know I can't take that job, kind of as like a step of faith. Yeah. But before I even could call them, I already had a missed call and a voicemail from the church that I knew in my heart was it. It was the senior pastor reaching out to me to say, hey, Sam, I don't know if you know me, if you've heard of me, but I have this opportunity. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I turned down the job. Fast forward, bro, I end up serving at that church. I'm still working there. This is 2009. Yeah. I was a youth pastor for 9 years. The same youth ministry, which doesn't happen very often. Transition over all pastoral care, missions and outreach, full circle, bro, is overall missions, outreach, took teens on hundreds of teens on mission trips all over the globe, and went off staff, started working for Feed, missed that local church grind. God opened the door to work for both. I left my church well when I left staff. That's a whole nother message too. It was a healthy
for sure.
exit, and God opened the door for me to jump right back on the team. And now I work for Feed and still serve in the local church as well. And man, just this, like, I tell that story because it's just that reminder that, like, if God's called you to something, nothing can cancel out that calling. Like, if He's called you to something, you stay faithful, like whatever that looks like. I gave God my yes at a really young age. So if it was yes to preach at a preschool or a prison, I was going to be there. I wasn't too good to do anything. And man, from there, it was just like, just go, just say yes, just lean in. And if you're in a spot where you're like needing experience, then just cut your teeth, lose your pride, and gain experience. Serve. It's not about the paycheck. Man, follow that passion that God's put in your heart. Go after it, lean in, because on the other side of your obedience is a lifetime of God doing insanely faithful things where I can look back. I remember crying, this is kind of awkward, crying in the shower in Bucharest, Romania one night when God hit me with, remember all those things that you wanted to do when you were in high school. I'm about to cry right now, man. Like all those things you dreamed of doing, now you're doing them. When you're in your 30s, you can look back and go, yeah, like here we go. So anyways, man, that's a little story of Sam's journey. I hope it's a little bit encouraging for somebody.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's so good. Like your story, Sam, like it's so good. I just like what you just said there at the end. On the other side of your obedience is when you get to see God. Like, man, I'm sorry, I'm butchering the quote, but it was just so good that you said, like, man, God shows up when we walk through that obedience, when we get to the other side of it. Man, that's so good. I love what you said too about earlier when God says go, you're like, God already told me this, so I'm not going to pray about it. Like, I think that's kind of like a nice little side quest here, if you will, if you're a video gamer. But man, I feel like we hide behind, I'll pray about it a lot as believers. And man, it's so hard, I think, for me to kind of reconcile that sometimes because we don't have to ask God if we should care for people in need. We don't have to ask God if we should tell someone about Him. We don't have to pray about these things. Like, there are certain things that God has already told us to do. So I'll pray about that opportunity. We don't have to do that. And so I thank you for reminding us for that. Of that. But man, one of my favorite things to do on this podcast is just kind of celebrate the random or seemingly random moments. And man, I just feel like your story was so heavily impacted and changed by that one encounter, right? Of that guy that interrupted you on your way to kind of quit, you know what I mean? And really provided you with sort of energy to keep going in this race. And so, man, I just love that. Can you tell us, like, I don't know if there's any more to that story or like the relationship there, you know, that kind of stuff. It's just such a cool moment.
Dude, full circle. So like 3 months ago, I'm at my church in a different city.
Okay.
And lo and behold, that dude and his family from India, which he lives in Colorado now, are randomly at our church. And he's like, dude, do you remember me? And I was like, oh my gosh, do I remember you? He didn't know the story. Like, he didn't know the story. And I told him that story right then and there. I was like, you have no idea how much God used you in my life. And now his parents are a part of our church family. And I took a picture with him in the lobby, dude. I took a picture and I actually posted it. I'll show you it on my Instagram. I posted it not that long ago. I was like, this dude right here, like, instrumental, you know? And no, man, I think it's just it's just a lot to think about, man. I think people just overcomplicate God. They overcomplicate, young adults especially overcomplicate everything. And it's this fear of failure, a fear of I'm going to miss God. And like, God is not just like waiting for you to screw up, Like, there's just this, and like you said, it's like if I tell my kids to clean their room, they don't need to come ask for permission to clean their room. It's like, go clean your room. Like
Yeah,
it's not, so like you said, like I don't need to pray about it. I'm not anti-prayer. I'm very pro-prayer. But like
absolutely.
God's already he already spoke. And back to being biblically literate, it's like if you don't know God's word, then you don't really know God's direction, And
Right.
so, and that goes for people in ministry too.
Man, you're preaching today, Sam. This is some good stuff. I love it. I love it.
Man.
Um, Last thing, really, one of the things that you talked about was as you were kind of pursuing this job, like you had the one opportunity that didn't feel like the right fit, and then you were kind of like walking in faith towards this thing. But I think a lot of times, especially in that early 20s years, like young adult years, when we're trying to find that thing, man, you had so many opportunities to get very discouraged and walk away from that calling and walk away from that purpose. How did you stay faithful and stay patient? And I know obviously the one moment where you were ready to quit aside, and God very actively intervening in that, but otherwise, man, you seem to walk through many years from when you began being the poster child for all these things until that payoff, or that until it came to fruition. How'd you stay faithful, man?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, to be honest. I think it was just, bro. I mean, again, my home, like, I've had people in my home like die of drug overdoses to,
Jeez.
having home drug testing systems in my house. Like, police at my house were not rare. And Brandon, for me, I saw all of that and I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. Like I see
Sure.
how this goes. I see the end game here. And I was so drawn to like the things of God. I don't know how else to put it. Like I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
I've messed up so much. But like genuinely, I was just like, dude, I had no idea what I wanted to be growing up. When people would ask me, I would say a professional snowboarder. I lived in Oklahoma. I'd never snowboarded in my life. Like I had
It's like
no
being a professional
idea.
surfer in Colorado.
Yeah, like I had no idea, bro. And then I had this
Yeah.
God encounter. I was terrified to speak in public, horrified.
Yeah.
And then, dude, this is a whole nother conversation another time. My life was just filled with fear as a kid because of the things I witnessed. And
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
encounter with God, all that fear broke off me. I literally was like, dude, my eternity is in heaven. Like, who cares
Yeah.
what happens here on earth if it's not for God? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was so so genuine. Like, it was so real to me that I was like, what you think about me literally doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
so genuine. Like, changed everything. So then I was like, give me a mic. I've got something to say. Like,
Yeah.
and like it was that real. So yeah, maybe that answers that.
It definitely does. I think it speaks to a couple of things. One, just, is it real? You know what I mean? Like for you, it was very real. Do we own our faith? And again, like that comes back to like biblical literacy and prayer and things like that. I'm not anti-prayer either. I think that, my comment there was that we hide behind it sometimes so we don't have to do the work, because that matters, right? We need to do the things. But at the same time, like we definitely have to be just bathed in scripture and covered in prayer. And when we do that, when we're able to connect with God for real, then it doesn't get so hard to walk through the things that we have to walk through. And so I think that's amazing. And then I don't know, I think in all of it too, it just points to the power of community and people pouring into your life. You had people from the jump that poured in and helped you grow and mentored you. And I think it's so important for us to find those people and stay connected to those people. And and other than that, I think that it's, just following closely to what God has to say, and don't grow weary, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think, dude, throughout my tenure working at church, I've experienced good, bad, and ugly, bro, to
Absolutely.
the max. And in all of that, it's like people didn't call me, God did. And
Right.
people aren't perfect. People screw up. So do you. Show people the same grace you've been shown.
Absolutely.
And just don't get bitter. Like, that's
Right.
been a big lesson for me. It's like, just don't get bitter. Forgive fast. Forgive completely. That's how God forgives you. And if you live with that, just like, I forgive you, And then be quick to, I would also say to young leaders, this is just kind of random stuff. I'm all about this kind of stuff. Be quick to confess. Be quick to have people that you can go, dude, I screwed up here. I missed it. Don't have a bunch of skeletons or any in your closet. Like I always say, have one or two people who know everything, like everything. And I have that. I have two or three I could say that know everything. My wife is the first one, and she's got an open book to every part of my life. And then my best friend, John, everything. Like there's nothing. I'm like, you ask, the answers, not that I'm lying to other people, but you know what I'm saying? It's like,
you're not oversharing.
That keeps you safe, where you're like, dude, I'm not carrying, like, my book's open with people. Yeah.
I love that, man. Well, Sam, man, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I'm so blessed by your friendship. So I just, really appreciate you, man. It's been good. So
dude,
love a random Instagram post.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, hey, thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode of This Awesome Life. I know I was encouraged by Sam's thoughts. Man, he is just a wise dude, and I really love having him as part of my life. If you're a young leader, youth pastor, man, I would encourage you to check out what Feed is doing. Like he said, they're totally free resources. There is no catch. That's a question I ask all the time. Hey, what's the catch? And literally with Feed, there is no catch. They just want to empower ministry leaders to do their job well, to reach the kingdom. So one of the things that I didn't get a chance to jump back to as Sam and I were talking, that chance encounter that he had as he was getting ready to leave, as he was getting ready to quit, this guy walks up to him and says, "Hey, my life is different because you're in it." And that gave him the strength to keep going, the patience to continue pursuing his calling. And I think that that's so critical that we remember that those encouragements can change people's future. That one moment really helped impact Sam in a way that opened doors for him in the future. So what I want to encourage you to do is, if you feel like God has laid something on your heart that you need to share with somebody, that you need to tell them some encouraging word, tell them. Don't wait. Again, it's one of those things that God has already told us in his word, that we should be building each other up, that we should be lifting each other up and encouraging one another and helping one another to grow. Make the phone call, send the text, walk up to them in person. You never know how that's going to impact somebody in someone's future. I've done it many times where I've sent a text of like, "Hey, I was just praying for you today. I want you to know how much you mean to me. Here's a way that you've impacted my life in a big way." And literally every time I actually do that, I get the text back that says, "You don't know how much I needed to hear this today. Thank you." And so if you're holding on to encouragement that God has given you for someone else, man, you could be cheating them out of something that they really need. Not necessarily cheating them out of something, but you know what I mean. Don't hold back in your encouragement. Again, thanks to Sam for the conversation. It was so good. Our purpose can be found in a chance encounter. Things can change drastically in one encounter, and I think Sam is a good example of that. Thanks again for listening to This Awesome Life. This has been just an incredible conversation with Sam. I really appreciate him. If you want to stay connected to This Awesome Life in other ways, you can subscribe to the This Awesome Life blog and email list. You can also follow me on social media. All those links are in the show notes below, and I would love to see you there. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.